She's a pretty big drag. Goldberg calls Kamala Harris Biden's worst political decision on CNN's Chris Wallace. Now, I said this a long time ago. This is what happens. You get another DEI hire that really don't deserve the job. She was terrible in California as a AG, locking up innocent people, keeping people in prison longer than what they need to be, on like small like marijuana charges, just so she can have people to work for free. Well, work for pennies on the dollar. I should say they pay them cents on it, like pennies on the dollar, and she's inauthentic. She's inauthentic. People see through her facade, and she's just terrible. She's inarticulate. She's not that bright, and she's not fooling anybody. And this is this is what happens when you don't choose people on merit. You choose them because they check off boxes. So we're gonna play this video clip. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things I can't talk about here. There's also a link to my Instagram and my merch store. Also, check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for news as well. All right, let's check out this clip here. Again, this is from CNN's Chris Wallace. Here we go. By way of Mediaite. Okay.
Vice President Harris is taking a bigger and more prominent role in the Biden re-election campaign. This week, she's kicking off an economic opportunity tour, starting with stops in Atlanta and Detroit, that focuses on community.
Hold on. Let me stop. An economic opportunity tour. Y'all killed the economy. Bidenomics killed the economy, and you going on tour on the economy. It makes no sense to me. Okay, well, let's go ahead and continue.
Communities of color. Harris has already visited more than a dozen states this year, talking about reproductive rights and gun control. But despite being out front on those issues, interesting news, recent focus groups conducted.
Look, people can see through the facade. She's so fake. Look at her.
By the super PAC Republican voters against Trump found that swing voters don't like Harris. And focus groups conducted by the Democratic National Committee also found Harris rubs some people the wrong way. So, Jonah, how big a drag is Kamala Harris?
I mean, we all know people don't like her. She's vice president, and they're not talking about her taking over for Biden. You hear names like Newsom, who's also a tragic case. Newsom destroyed California, but but they're not. When they talk about replacing Joe Biden, they don't even mention Harris. That's how you know she's a disaster.
On the ticket.
I think she's a pretty big jag. I think she was arguably Biden's worst political decision of his presidency to pick her in the first place. And one of the special reasons that she's a drag is Biden's age concerns people. They worry that he can't fill a term. They worry that he's not up to the job. And so the vice president matters more than they normally do. I generally think going into the future that Democrats really should not nominate or front people who come from decidedly all blue states unless they're like once in a generation talents like Barack Obama. Because Kamala Harris does not know how to talk to the center or to the right. She only really knows how to sort of speak the language of the base of the party, and that's 34% of the electorate.
Let me pick up on that, because it's not just focus groups that are down on Harris right now. In a recent poll, national poll, 40% approved of the vice president's job performance, while 55% disapproved. And Karen,
I would like to talk to the 40% that approve of her performance and ask, what has she done that was so great as vice president? I mean, even Joe Biden, who was a disaster as a vice president and disaster as a president, but he was a disaster as a vice president for Barack Obama, a gaffe machine. He still is not as bad as Harris. because at least when you was asking him about things, he had some type of idea about what was going on. Harris seems like she does not have a clue. She does not have a clue, and she's remember the borders are that our border is still jacked up. You know, what can you name one thing that Harris has done as vice president? No one can do that.
Yeah. To Jonah's point, given the fact that people are so worried, voters on all political stripes are so worried about Biden's age and whether he's going to last for 4 more years, is it a problem when they're not very satisfied or reassured by the person who would succeed him?
Doesn't really matter. She's not going to be replaced, and they don't like her. There's lots of reasons they don't like her, and I don't think the vice president...
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't matter because she's not going to be replaced. That's what she said. But I think it does matter, but they're not going to replace her because how does that look? You getting rid of the quote-unquote first black, even though, like I said before, her entire career, she was known as the first Indian stuff. You know, anyway, the first black vice president and the first black female vice president, the first female vice president, you can't just kick her aside. They create these disasters for themselves. You know, it's the same thing with Jean-Pierre. You hired her, and she's doing a disastrous job because she shouldn't have had a job in the first place, and now you can't get rid of her. Now you're stuck with her. And this is what Democrats do. This is what DEI gets you. Again, it's a disaster.
President matters as much as people think. I don't think they think about her unless...
With an 82-year-old president, it might
I get
matter
that,
more.
but right now, I don't think that's the first thing they think about is her necessarily.
Well, she's in denial. Whoever this lady is, I don't know who she is, but she's in denial, and she's the problem, part of the problem. She's the people live in a bubble that vote for these idiots that's in power right now. And this is the reason why our country's in the toilet right now is because of women like her.
I just don't. I think they've not liked her. She's had not a successful vice presidency, although I don't know what that means at all, because I don't think people thought of Mike Pence very much, or Dan Quayle, or anybody else. And so,
but none of them were as terrible as her. She just she comes in. She's again inarticulate. They ask her questions. She don't know things. She repeats herself. Like it's just she's a terrible vice president. I mean, you can't deny that.
It doesn't matter because she's not going anywhere. He's not going to replace her. Think about that.
Again, I do agree with her with that. They're not going to replace her because that would be, I mean, they would lose the little credibility that they have now with their base if they get rid of Kamala Harris.
Think about the earthquake that would cause. And so
I think Jonah's right.
It's wild. It's wild. Well, let me know what you think. Do you think they're going to get rid of Vice President Harris, or do you think she's going to take over for Biden? Let me know what you think. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest news. Until next time, peace.